the name of Allah, the Merciful, the Intensely Merciful, peace be upon Muhammad and the family of Muhammad. Today we will reflect on a powerful narration reported by Al-Mufadal from Imam Jafar al-Sadiq, peace be upon him. This is a narration that speaks about faith, loyalty, testimony, and responsibility among believers. As you watch, you'll be invited to pause, reflect, and engage. This is not just a story, it's a mirror. Al-Mufadal comes to his Imam with a difficult and sensitive question, one that touches family belief and justice. He asks, "What do you say about the Nasibi man who marries a believing woman?" A Nasibi, someone who openly harbors hatred toward the Ahlul Bayt, is not merely someone with a different opinion. This is about active hostility toward the household of the Prophet. Why do you think Al-Mufadal brings this question directly to the Imam instead of answering it himself? Perhaps at ease because this issue is so severe that it requires the infallible guidance of the Imam to navigate the moral and spiritual complexities involved. It shows humility and a deep understanding of where true authority lies. Imam al-Sadiq, peace be upon him, answers with clarity and compassion. He says if his hatred becomes apparent to her, she disobeys him and says, "Divorce me." Then she calls upon me to testify for her, and I will testify. Notice something important here. The Imam places the believer's faith and safety above the social structure, above the marriage itself. This is not about creating chaos, this is about moral protection. It shows that in Islam, the preservation of one's faith is the highest priority, and a marriage that actively harms that faith cannot be sustained. What does this tell us about how Islam prioritizes belief over social appearances? It teaches us that our spiritual well-being is paramount, and we should never compromise our core beliefs for the sake of maintaining a facade or a social contract that has become spiritually toxic. Al-Mufadal then asks a serious question, one that many of us might ask, and do I testify for her? The Imam replies, there is no protection for the disbeliever over the believer. This statement isn't about promoting injustice, it's about where our primary loyalty must lie. The Imam is clarifying that the bond of faith between believers creates a sacred duty to protect one another, especially when one is being oppressed or their faith is endangered. The allegiance to a fellow believer in this context overrides any social obligation to someone actively hostile to the very foundation of that faith. Who do you feel responsible for protecting socially, emotionally, spiritually? This reflection encourages us to think about our own circles of responsibility and where we place our loyalties when faced with a moral conflict. Al-Mufadal, ever cautious, remembers a verse from the Quran, "Except he who has witnessed with truth and they know." So he asks, how can I testify if I do not know? He's concerned about bearing false witness. This is where the Imam reveals something profound. He essentially tells him, you do know. He explains that Allah took a covenant, a sacred contract from the believers in the world of pre-existence. Part of this contract is that believers will testify for one another when it concerns matters of chastity, truth, and faith. This isn't knowledge from seeing with your eyes, but knowledge rooted in a deeper spiritual reality. What kinds of knowledge do we gain through faith, not just sight or evidence? Faith gives us insight into moral truths, a sense of right and wrong, and an understanding of our spiritual duties that transcends purely physical proof. It is the knowledge of the heart. The Imam explains that a believer testifying for another believer is not a favor, it is a duty. This testimony is greater than material evidence because it is rooted in truthfulness, virtue, and brotherhood. Allah informed the believers about the trials, the enemies, and the hardships they would face. He then commanded them to stand for one another so they may survive and remain dignified in their faith. This divine command establishes a system of mutual support and protection within the community of believers. Think of a time when someone stood up for you or when you stayed silent but shouldn't have. This simple exercise reminds us of the real-world impact of our actions and inactions and the powerful difference that solidarity can make in someone's life. The Imam concludes with a striking statement, what right is greater than this right, that which separates between a Nasibi and a believing woman? This is about preserving faith, protecting the believer, and drawing a clear moral line. The Imam is highlighting that the duty to testify in this situation is one of the highest rights, as it directly serves to rescue a believer from a spiritually destructive environment and uphold the sanctity of their faith. It reminds us that neutrality in core matters of belief can sometimes become a form of betrayal. Where do we need to draw clearer lines in our own lives, and where have we been afraid to draw them? This question challenges us to examine our own compromises and find the courage to stand for our principles. This narration is not just history, it is a call to loyalty, to courage, and to responsibility. It teaches us that our faith is not a solitary journey but a collective commitment. We are meant to be guardians and supporters of one another on the path to Allah. May Allah make us truthful witnesses for one another. May He protect the believers, and may peace and blessings be upon Muhammad and the family of Muhammad. Reflect, share, stand for the truth.